The first thing you notice is the silence, not the peaceful kind, the kind that settles over a place when everything alive has given up on it. It's a gray October morning in Harlan County, Kentucky. A low fog clings to the fields. Thistle has swallowed the fence rows whole. What was once a barn lists hard to one side, its tin roof flapping in a wind that smells of rust and old rain. A disc harrow sits half buried near the gate, vines threading through its frame. The fields beyond are not fields at all, just gray ground, compacted, cracked, empty. This is 40 acres. This is what 22 years of neglect looks like. Then a silver pickup truck pulls through the rusted cattle gate. It stops. The door opens. A woman in worn boots and a fleece-lined vest steps out. She stands in the middle of it all, hands in her pockets, and does something no one expects. She smiles. Her name is Della Marchetti. She's 41, and within the week, she will sign papers to buy this forgotten piece of land for $38,000. A price that, even at that, everyone in the county considers a waste of money. What happened over the next 12 months would completely change the way this county looked at forgotten farmland. If you've ever believed people overlook incredible opportunities simply because they don't understand what they're looking at, you're in the right place. Subscribe for more true stories of ordinary people achieving extraordinary things, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Della Marchetti is not a farmer. That's the first thing people will tell you. For 14 years, she worked as an agricultural extension agent in eastern Kentucky, helping farmers troubleshoot soil problems, manage livestock, access grant programs. She attended soil health conferences and read regenerative land management studies the way other people read novels. She was good at her job, but something gnawed at her. She was helping other people's land recover. She wanted her own. Her neighbors in Fenton knew her as the quiet woman whose garden somehow produced more than anyone else's, and as someone who'd never owned more than a half acre. So when word spread she was buying the old Cutler property, the reaction was swift. "That land is done," said Eugene Peabody, a third-generation tobacco farmer who'd watched the Cutler farm decline since the early 2000s. You couldn't grow good weeds on that ground. He wasn't entirely wrong, but he wasn't entirely right either. The Cutler property had been mismanaged since Harold Cutler retired in 2001. For 2 decades, seasonal renters tilled it bare, chasing commodity corn yields that barely broke even. When the last tenant left in 2019, the county soil survey rated organic matter at a catastrophic 0.4%. Healthy farmland runs between 3 and 5%. This ground was closer to construction fill than farmland. The bank had taken the property. The asking price had dropped 3 times. No serious buyer touched it, which is exactly why Della spent months studying every record she could find on it. What Della saw that nobody else stopped to look for was water. Beneath the overgrown southeast corner, fed by a limestone shelf running across the ridge, was a spring flowing quietly for decades. Not in the listing, not in the county records. She found it on a 1967 hand-drawn survey from the county clerk's archive and confirmed it herself with a pair of boots and 3 hours of walking. The spring produced clean, consistent water year-round. She also spotted 11 aging apple trees in the southeast tree line, nearly invisible beneath wild grape and honeysuckle, forgotten, still alive. In the northwest corner, sheltered by a natural rise, the soil was slightly darker. She took a sample. Organic matter tested at 1.8%, nearly 5 times what the rest of the property showed. Degraded land is not dead land, it is sleeping land, and she knew how to wake it up. The closing happened November 3rd. By the 5th, the story had made the rounds at the Fenton Feed and Farm Supply. Her cousin Brantley said it plainly. "Della, I love you, but you've lost your mind." The loan officer at the regional bank, Gerald Stokes, who'd financed farms across 4 counties, approved her improvement loan, but quietly noted the collateral was of questionable productive value. The county agricultural commissioner, when Della mentioned her plans at a local meeting, nodded and said nothing, which, in that room, was its own kind of verdict. Even the farmers she respected most were skeptical, not cruel, just realistic. They had watched too many optimistic people buy broken ground and walk away broke. What none of them could calculate was Della's preparation. Della had not moved quickly. For 18 months before signing, the final 3 studying every Cutler record she could find, she had been building a plan. She attended workshops at the University of Kentucky, visited 7 farms across 3 states, and consulted quietly with a soil microbiologist. She had read everything written by soil health pioneer Gabe Brown and built a 5-year spreadsheet down to the dollar. Soil biology first, infrastructure second, production third. She was not betting on luck. She was betting on biology. December. Della spends 3 weeks repairing the perimeter fence with used T-posts and reclaimed wire. Her hands blister. She doesn't stop. January. She clears the spring and reroutes a gravity-fed water line to 2 future paddock sites. Eugene Peabody drives past slowly, but doesn't stop. February. She broadcasts a cover crop mix, cereal rye, hairy vetch, crimson clover, by hand across 12 damaged acres in a light snow. Seed cost, $340. March. 6 Berkshire pigs arrive. Rotated through the worst compacted ground in a practice called targeted rooting, their natural digging breaks up the hardpan without a single tractor pass. April. The cover crops emerge in a carpet of green so dense that Della photographs it from the road and can barely believe it herself. May. 8 ewes and a ram, Katahdin hair sheep, arrive and begin working the land in short rotational grazing cycles, mimicking the movement patterns of wild herds. The idea is ancient. The results are modern. June. 3 apple trees are beyond saving, but 8 respond to pruning. Della plants raised bed vegetables near the repaired barn, tomatoes, peppers, herbs. Her first farmer's market appearance sells out by 9 a.m. Something is starting. By midsummer, the story was shifting. A Lexington chef named Rosalind Ferris, who sourced aggressively from local producers, discovered Della through a mutual contact and placed a standing weekly order for herbs and greens. That single relationship tripled her direct revenue overnight. The county soil health cooperative then asked Della to speak at their August meeting. She declined, but agreed to let the group walk her fields. 14 farmers showed up that Wednesday morning, expecting modest progress. What they found stopped several of them at the fence line before they'd even crossed onto the property. The soil was darker, visibly. You could smell the change. That clean, mushroom and rain smell that signals active microbial life returning to Earth that had been biologically empty for years. The rye roots had fractured compaction layers 2 feet down. Earthworm counts had risen from nearly 0 to 28 per square foot. One farmer crouched down, picked up a handful of soil, and held it without speaking. Then he looked up at Della and said, "This isn't possible in one season." She handed him the soil test results. He read them twice. Word spread fast in Harlan County. Within a week, people were driving past the old Cutler Road just to look. In September, Della submitted her soil for retesting. Organic matter across the 12 restored acres, 1.9%, a nearly 5-fold increase in 10 months. Her approach, no tillage, no synthetic inputs, integrated livestock, aggressive cover cropping, had compressed a decade-long restoration into a single growing season. The county extension office called it one of the most significant one-season soil improvements documented at that scale. A water monitoring sensor near the spring showed runoff levels had dropped 67% compared to the previous fall. Where compacted ground once shed every raindrop into drainage, the restored fields now absorbed water like a sponge. The county noticed. Eugene Peabody came by on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. He walked the fields with Della for almost an hour, mostly silent. He looked at the sheep, the soil, the apple trees heavy with more fruit than they'd likely carried in decades. At the gate, he turned to her. "I've been farming this county for 40 years. I didn't think this ground could come back. I was wrong." Sometimes, one honest sentence is worth more than an apology. By October 3rd, exactly 1 year after Della first drove through that rusted cattle gate, the Harlan County Agricultural Commissioner's Office formally recognized the Marchetti Farm as a regional model for soil restoration. In a county where agriculture had been declining for 30 years, that was not a small thing. The farm was generating $2,800 per month through restaurant contracts, a 22-member CSA, and weekend farmers market sales. The sheep flock had grown to 19 animals. The pigs had been processed, netting $1,400 in direct sales. The apple harvest, modest, imperfect, extraordinary, had been pressed into 180 gallons of fresh cider, sold out in a single weekend. The $38,000 investment had not made Della rich, but the farm was cash flow positive in year one, on ground every professional had dismissed. When those numbers circulated at the county's annual Farm Bureau meeting, the room went quiet in a way people still talk about. Gerald Stokes requested a copy of Della's soil reports for his files. 3 neighboring farmers had already begun implementing cover cropping and rotational grazing. The County Extension Office launched a new workshop series on regenerative soil methods, the first in Harlan County's history, citing the Marchetti Farm as its catalyst. The old Cutler property, the ground no one wanted, the farm that made feed store regulars shake their heads, was alive. Not despite being broken, because one person understood exactly what broken land needs. There's a lesson in that, and it isn't really about farming. It's about the difference between seeing what something is and understanding what it could become. The people who walked away from those 40 acres weren't foolish. They were measuring the land by appearance, not potential. Value is not always visible. Sometimes it is buried, dormant, waiting for someone patient enough to ask better questions. As Wendell Berry wrote, "The soil is the great connector of lives, the source and destination of all." Della didn't just restore 40 acres, she reconnected a forgotten piece of ground to its purpose, and reminded an entire county of what patient, intelligent work can still make possible.